IM Superside Series, and with Steve Webster now absent from this round, the two Reeves brothers assume the pole position, as they say. So they now lead the championship standings coming to this third round. A good chance for this man as well on his home GP, so to speak, this Jörg Steinhausen, number 22. He will want to win here in front of his home crowd if he can. Ian's down on the grid.
Tero, 11th position on the grid. I don't think you wanted to be starting this far back.
Yeah, yeah, but let's try to make a good race and good start, and let's see what happens. Now everything looks good, but we had a little problems just 20 minutes ago. We had to go to welding the engine, and wow.
Not what you want just before the start.
No, but just I'm relaxed.
84, the British pairing of Andy Laidlow and Patrick Farrance.
Andy, great qualifying. Do you think you can keep it up for the race?
Yeah, hopefully, if I can get away and get a good start, I hope to have to stick with Rocher and maybe Steinhausen even, but I feel really good today. I hope it's been a lifetime ambition to get on the podium at a World Cup, and today could be the day, I hope.
All right, well, we wish good luck, Andy, and hopefully we'll see you on the podium after.
Thank you.
Jörg, some last-minute adjustments. Anything wrong?
No, everything seems to be okay, just last adjustments on the quick shift system. Hopefully it's better in the race then.
And what do you think your chances are this weekend?
Very difficult to say. It's a very long race. It's not just going flat out, it's just keeping brain right and taking care of the tires and trying not to give Reeves a break. So I really want to follow him and look for the chance to strike back.
Well, he's home a race, so Steinhausen will indeed be looking to try and get out front in front of Reeves. There is Tim Reeves' teammate Brian Pedder, number 75. It's a very hot day here, as you can see, very similar to our last round in Hungary. And that's Steve Norbury, I think, number 36 there, another British crew. So they're now coming under starters' orders. Any moment now we'll see those lights go out. We're on board here with Steinhausen, I believe it is. So we wait now just for those lights to come up and go out. They're in gear. Any moment now, Ian's made his way back into the commentary tower and they're off. So, well, who's got the best start? That's the question.
Yeah, it's a long run down into this first corner, and it's a real tight stop, 20 mile an hour hairpin bend, and there's three abreast going in there, and a lot of bumping and barging in the middle of the pack, and it looks like Steinhausen that got the whole shot there and is out in front. We're on board with Bill Philp and Rick Long now. They qualified in 7th position, and they're in the middle of that pack going around this complex. I really don't like this complex put in to slow down the Formula One cars, but it's really makes life a lot difficult for these sidecars.
Well, we're just hoping that this week the heat situation won't play the havoc as it did in Hungary, with Steve Webster pulling out there after his passenger, Paul Woodhead, collapsed. But of course, Webster and Woodhead not racing with us here today, owing to the fact that Steve Webster has a problem with concentration. I don't know, Ian, I've really not heard that one before.
No, it's a real problem for Steve. He's been suffering with it for most of this season, actually, and he's finally sort of admitted defeat and taken some time out. He said he's never had a sickie from work, and of course this is his job. He's never had a sickie before, but he needs one now. So we wish Steve and Paul all the best and hope to see him back in the championship as soon as possible.
Steinhausen leads. A chance here for the German to claw his way back up the standings with the absence of Webster and Woodhead. Reeves in second place. I can't quite see who it was there in third, but it really is getting tight out there.
Yeah, I think it was Andy Laidlow and Patrick Farrance that got a good start and were in that third position, but Steinhausen out in front. He knows this circuit well, raced him many times in the German Championship. But Tim and Tristan know this as well. They were here last year and beat Steinhausen on the short circuit at Nurburgring. Just listen to that Steinhausen racing LCR Suzuki through this complex, bouncing our camera across those high curbs and back out onto the old part of the track down to this hairpin bend, really bumpy circuit here at the Nurburgring on this part. Again, Formula One cars don't do these tracks any favours. But it is indeed Andy Laidlow and Patrick Farrance hanging on to the shirt tails of Tim and Tristan Reeves. That's a good start from them, and they'll be keen to try and hang in with the German and the English pairing in front of them.
Well, at least we've got more than 6 outfits on the start, unlike recent Formula One races, but we won't go down that route. But It is, as you say, very bumpy out there. The demands that the Formula One power makes onto the track surface does ripple it up quite a bit. We had the same problems in Hungary, but they hit those curbs so hard. But just look at this young man, Andy Laidlow. He really is a bit of a revelation for this year. Seems to have come from nowhere, and just he's on there in the top three. That I think is Richard Gatt behind him.
Yeah, and that's Jos Moser and Pekka Pivarinta there down in 5th and 6th position. They're going well. Tim having a look up the inside of Steinhausen into that tight corner, just about squeezes through. There was some, well, that was a bit close, and we're on board now with Dan Morrissey. He's down in 12th position, and he's going to overtake, I think that...
No, he's not.
No, he's not. Oh, well, that's a disappointment for Dan Morrissey. He was trying to make up ground, and you don't want to be sitting there too long. You've got those bikes coming towards you from 150 miles an hour down to this dead stop hairpin, and, well, sometimes quite difficult to get a neutral to get these machines started. They won't start in gear. But now it's Tim and Tristan Reeves who've hit the front, and they're starting to drag Jörg Steinhausen away from Andy Laidlow and Richard Gatt in 4th position. Pekka Pivarinta and Peter Wall there in 6th. They've been going well this year as well. But you were saying about Andy Laidlow, first season in the World Championship. Last year was really his first year on the Formula One sidecar, and you know, really showing some impressive form in this early part of the season.
Missing two notable names. One of them, of course, today is Steve Webster, the many times world champion, pulling out after well, sort of medical problem. And another rider who we're so used to seeing at this level of racing.
Trying again up
changing again.
Well, he was almost on top of Tristan Reeves there, wasn't he? That was extremely close. Back on board with Bill Philp and Rick Long on the 155 medium machine. And they're running in 7th position at the moment, I think.
And sliding all over the place by the looks of things.
That looks like Pekka Pivarinta in front of us, and Pivarinta's in that 5th position, so perhaps 6th position for Bill Philp at the moment. Tim and Tristan Reeves still out front. That's Johan Reiterholt. He's been in the pit straight away, and also we've had word that Mike Rochner and Adolf Harney didn't make the start. They pulled off at the end of the warm-up lap, so they were 3rd on the grid and didn't make the start in their home race, so that'll be a disappointment for Hanny.
Especially after the result from the previous round in Hungary.
Yeah, 3rd position, of course, in Hungary. They were making their way up the championship, so real big disappointment for Adolf and Mike Rochner.
Yeah, the other rider I was trying to mention, who's an absentee at the moment from this series, of course, Tom Hanks, the Brummie. Unable to put the deal together for the team to make this year's series, and let's hope we see him back maybe before the end.
Yeah, Brian Pedder and Rod Stedman, they're just going past Bill Philp and Rick Long, so they're starting to drop back down the order a little bit. They're back down in 8th position now with that pass. Philp and Long obviously using the Yamaha R1 engine, and although it's a good motor, the Suzuki GSXR just does seem to have the legs on the Yamaha along these long straights, so maybe they're going to struggle a little bit.
Ooh. I presume that was Pedder that just shot up the inside.
Yeah, I think that was a camera angle, Kenny. It's a real tight corner. There's 2 lines coming out. Either try and hold it tight or take the wide line. But well, Pedder and Stedman just lifting that sidecar wheel. Tricky section here. 3rd gear all the way through. Can't put the power on. Bouncing across those curves, using a bit of the old track is Bill Philp. Well, he tries, doesn't he?
Bill, of course, the owner of Berkshire Motorcycles in Slough. So, 2nd, 3rd, looking at Laidlow, and it is Richard Gatt in 4th.
Yeah, well, Richard Gatt and Paul Randall said if they got the good start, they could be up there, and they're doing it now.
Tim Reeves still leads this race, and it's still Jörg Steinhausen in 2nd as they complete another lap. Well, it's between these two at the moment. It was Andy Laidlow in 3rd with Richard Gatt in 4th. So we've got Brits 1, 3 and 4 with the German 2nd.
Yeah, Steinhausen dropped away a little bit from Tim Reeves, but now starting to close that gap back in again. There's Tero Mannanen, number 88, and Pekka Koisman, and they started 11th on the grid, and they're up to 8th position at the moment. So their problems 20 minutes before the race not affecting them now.
Bill Philp, Rick Long, they're running down, and I think about 9th at the moment. And you know, it doesn't matter how small you make these onboard camera lenses, the fly still needs to find their way onto them. Splattered, as always.
Maybe we'll ask Bill to try and avoid them next time.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Yeah.
Look at her using all the grass.
He's going grass tracking.
Poor old Rick Long getting a ride through that grass there. That won't help his hanging on, but still Tim and Tristan Reeves out front, just taking a look back to see where Steinhausen is. Well, he hasn't broken the toe from Steinhausen, and I have to say, Jörg Steinhausen, the first 2 rounds looking a little bit lacklustre to what we'd expect from the German. Remember, he almost won the World Championship in 2002. He had the most race wins in 2003, but I think the year out last year, just concentrating on the German series, affecting him a little bit, but now starting to come back into the old charger that we know. Well, Richie Gatt and Paul Randall doing a great job there, hanging on to Andy Laidlow. Don't seem to be able to close that gap. There's Bill Philp and Rick Long, and they've got Gary and Dan Knight and Martin and Tony Van Gils behind them. So this is the battle for 8th, 9th and 10th positions.
I have to say that Van Gils got an awful start to this race. He wasn't particularly well placed on the grid. What's the problem with him this week? He seems to have lost his sparks, as one would say.
Yeah, I think he just got a poor start. Qualifying wasn't so good for him, and Dan Knight, Gary and Dan Knight going up the inside of Bill Philp and Rick Long there. And well, this is a good ride from Gary Knight, the 1991 European champion. Had a long break from racing, came back last year to do the European series, some of the rounds, and you said Martin Van Gils not going very well. He's now through up past Bill Philp and chasing after Gary and Dan Knight. So from the form last year, yeah, you're right, Martin and Tony Van Gils not really on the pace they were last year, but of course they were on the podium in Hungary.
I thought he'd lost it then. That really started to get away from him.
Well, that's actually the way Martin and Tony Van Gils ride. I remember following them closely before in my World Championship days, and he's quite a scary guy to sit behind, as is this man Jörg Steinhausen. And Trevor Hopkinson on cue, coming through there with the sidecar wheel right up in the air. Steinhausen, very hard rider. If you're in close company with him, it's difficult to know their fastest lap from Jörg Steinhausen, so beginning to claw back Tim and Tristan Reeves as we get into the second half of this race.
I'm not quite sure. If you ask me to put some money on this one, I'm not quite sure where I'd spread it.
No, it's going to be a difficult one with the absence of Steve Webster, of course. It does leave it open now for these 2 youngsters at the head of the field to make their mark on this year's World Championship. Webster already down in 3rd position in the series and likely to drop even further back. So could we be seeing a new world champion at the end of this year?
Well, I think that's fairly sure that Tim and Tristan Reeves are going to achieve their career highlight, what they've wanted to achieve for several years, and become world champions.
Well, I'm sure that man there, Kenny's going to have something to say about that. The 35-year-old from Nurburgring in Germany, Jörg Steinhausen, desperate to emulate his father's double world championship. Richard Gatt and Paul Randall starting to close in on Andy Laidlow and Patrick Farrance now.
That's another 2 that have seemed to have come alight this year. I don't know whether it's funding, whether they've just managed to get the right engines, but Richard Gatt really has started to push his way to the front.
Yeah, took his first podium in Brands Hatch, and of course we spoke to him earlier, had to miss Hungary when his wife had a baby. But now,
yeah, congratulations are due there, of course.
Back on board with Bill Philp and still chasing Gary and Dan Knight, and ahead of them is Martin and Tony Van Gils beginning to stretch away. This is really fast through that kink, 155 miles an hour into this slow chicane. Find the track and move it a little bit across that dirt. There's cones there, but I'm sure by the end of this race most of those cones will be gone as well, especially the way Bill Philp's riding through there.
There'll be bits all over the place. Back onto the start and finish straight once again to complete and start a new lap. And they're already in amongst the slower riders, and this could make a difference.
Yeah, and already Steinhausen beginning to close on onto the back wheel of Tim and Tristan Reeves, as Bill Philp still struggling a bit to get round that hairpin, and yeah, in amongst the back markers, and Steinhausen now really on the back of Tim Reeves, and Tim knows it, he can hear him behind him, just checking where he is. Coming into this chicane's going to be very tight with the back marker in front. Can't quite see who it is at the moment.
He was
they
having
both
a look.
Get past.
Yeah.
They both squeezed through, and Steinhausen would have probably given, I think that was Harry Hamburger, the Austrian, a bit of a nudge on the way through. More back markers, that's the Swedish Johan Reuterholt again, just going a lap down after his visit to the pits early on in the race.
So a new lap begins.
Steinhausen didn't get the best of those back markers,
No,
did he? Just dropped back a little bit again.
The 77 outfit, the Roberts plant outfit, leads then of Tim and Tristan Reeves, the two brothers, with Jörg Steinhausen there. Trevor Hopkins is passenger. Second place, chasing down the two Brits. This is where the battle is at the front, and of course this is where the battle is now as far as the World Championship is concerned.
Yeah, and this battle that we're on board with as well, this is for 9th, 10th and 11th places, and I think behind Bill Philp is Steve Norbury as well, so a very tightly matched group this one. Through this final corner, feeding the power in gently, but back up front, Steinhausen trying to get back on terms with Tim Reeves after those back markers. Number 10 there is John and Gregory Clues. There's our third place, fourth place, number 8, Richard Gatt and Paul Randall, and they've lost out in those back markers as well. Back on with Bill Philp. Well, ahead of him, Gary and Dan Knight just seem to be able to get that hairpin a little bit smoother than Bill Philp and pull away through this section of the course. Dan Knight, the youngest competitor in this race, just 17 years of age. It looked like Gary Knight made a mistake through that left-hander, and that's given Bill Philp a chance to close back in.
All on the curbs again.
Over those curbs, very high serrated curbs, obviously for the Formula One cars. Don't do sidecars any good though, unfortunately. Bill closing back with these guys.
Don't do our onboards any good. It bounces the guts out of our cameras, but
you can imagine what it's like for the passenger.
I can imagine what it's like for a solo ride if he goes on those things.
But look at this, Bill Philp now right on the back wheel of Gary and Dan Knight, and he'll be looking for a good run out of this corner, and he's losing the back end through there, Gary Knight, and that's given Bill Philp a chance to get the power on, but did he have to back off as Knight slid round there? It doesn't look like he's going to be able to get past into the chicane this time around.
Closing up under the brakes. And this time Bill manages to leave the cones alone.
Now can Philp get through this final corner smoothly? No, just not quite the traction coming out of there. And they've now pulled away from Steve Norbury and standing passenger Mark Cox. So Philp, 11th position, chasing down the two in front of him again. Hard on the brakes, that's a really difficult corner. We've already seen Dan Morrissey and Rob Biggs spin out there earlier on in the race, and there's a ripple in the centre of the circuit. If you just get the braking wrong and brake on the white line in the exit of the pit lane, which I think is what happened to Morrissey, then it's all over and you're pointing backwards.
Yep. It's a tight battle this at the moment between these two. It can go any way. I'm sure Bill Philp would like to finish a few places further up the order. Of course, you home-based fans get a chance to see many of these English riders competing in the National MRO Series around the British circuits. Bill, of course, the current British champion.
Yeah, and he's just got past Gary and Dan Knight there, stayed wide to give Knight a bit of room through that left-hander, but now Bill Philp is up into that 10th place. And just a quick run through of the order. We've of course got Reeves and Steinhausen out front, Laidlow and Richard Gatt 3rd and 4th. 5th position, not seen a lot of them. Pekka Pivarinta, the Finn, having a great ride ahead of Brian Pedder and Rod Stedman. And then Jos Moser ahead of Tero Manninen before we come to this battle.
Well, it's definitely starting to hot up out there. Bill Philp still chasing down the outfit in front, and there is the leader and second place man, still Tim and Tristan Reeves. Still Jörg Steinhausen in second place. We're back on board with Bill Philp and Rick Long again. And they've still not sorted that one out, Yangi.
No, this is going to go all the way down to the wire, I think. Look at this, Bill Philp closing back in on Martin and Tony Van Gils. Philp seemingly got a bit of a second win now, hasn't he? And really starting to make his way back up through the order. Great shots down into second gear for this tight left-hander. Oh, and that's Pivarinta. That was our 5th position pairing. Pekka Pivarinta and Peter Wall, and they've spun out coming into that hairpin. And are they going to get that going again? Well, it's not looking hopeful at the moment, is it?
No, well, they were lucky, I think, to keep that up on its wheels. No, it's whatever's
looks
happened.
like it's all over, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
International
gone.
sign language
Yeah,
there.
that's all over, mate. Walk back to the pits.
There's Brian Pedder and Rod Steadman. They've now got ahead of Jos Moser. And, well, all these guys are closing up now, aren't they?
It's a bit of a throw the towel over 10 outfits job, this one now.
There's Martin and Tony Van Gils ahead of us coming into this chicane, hard on the brakes, passenger waiting as long as possible to get out for that left-hander and then quickly back across for the right-hand corner to get weight on the back wheel.
Oh, we've lost a passenger.
That looks like Rod Steadman.
Yeah.
Well, that's Brian Pedder's passenger, Rod Steadman. Well, we didn't quite see what happened. He's not very happy about that, is he?
He's got to chase the outfit down there and get back on it again.
Well, did we see what happened? No, we didn't.
No.
Back with Bill Philp having a look up the inside of Martin and Tony Van Gils. And that's Jos Moser in front.
No contact.
Philp's through.
Oh,
no, he's
no,
not.
he's not.
And just up in front of Jos Moser there is, well, just pulling off to the side, you may have seen it, is Brian Pedder. And now he realises he hasn't got a passenger. Well, we don't see what happened, but that's about 60, 70 miles an hour there to fall out. Quite a heavy impact. But Rod quickly up on his feet. Well, they've been having an exciting season, Brian Pedder and Rod Steadman, haven't they, to say the least?
Yeah, it started off at Brands Hatch in the national race. Well, as Ian has said, it's not over yet. It's still the two Reeves brothers out front. Jörg Steinhausen in front of his home crowd and all his fans and sponsors in second place. That German will want to get in front of that outfit, number 77, and win this race.
Yeah, 4 laps to go now. Tim Reeves taking another long look over his shoulder to see where Steinhausen is. He'll know he hasn't quite got enough of a lead to relax at the moment, and when Jörg Steinhausen's around, you certainly can't relax. I remember having a good race with him at Misano 3 or 4 years ago, and he does make it very difficult when you're in close company with him, a very hard rider.
Well, there's this little group again, all closed up and all climbing over each other, with Bill Philp and Rick Long at the rear of that group of 4.
Yeah, and of course we've lost Pekka Pivarinta, so we're now Bill Philp in 7th position.
It's a train, this is, led by number 2.
Well, actually, we've lost Richard Gatt and Paul Randall
you're
as
right
well.
there, yeah.
So Richard Gatt and Paul Randall, we didn't see what had happened, and this is a very close company in this group. But Richard Gatt and Paul Randall, they were lying in 4th position. Unfortunately, they're out of the race as well. And Martin and Tony Van Gils are in 5th position. Tero Manninen in 4th now. So this is 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th all together.
Oh, it's all diving, stick it in here.
Oh, that was a touch there. We just nudged Gary and Dan Knight coming out of that tight hairpin. And everybody looking to try and get past everybody else. And of course, if the move doesn't work, you have to slow up. And Bill Philp, they're just getting caught out. And he's going to try up the inside in here. Is he going to make it?
This
Not
could all end
quite.
in tears. Well, this is sidecar racing at its very best. You could not want... In fact, imagine being on one of those outfits. Oh, it's all getting very frantic out there.
Yeah, Martin and Tony Van Gils getting wide into that hairpin, and Bill Philp looking up the inside of Gary and Dan Knight, can't quite do it there. Jos Moser now at the head of this group. Martin Van Gils getting sideways, Gary Knight getting sideways. And who's going to get the run down into the chicane this time around?
It's anybody's race, this, and it could all end up in the kitty litter if they're not careful. Oh, here we go again. Who'd want to be a sidecar passenger? Oh, I thought that was it then.
Well, that was so close, wasn't it? Bill Philp flat out through that right-hand kink. Obviously, Gary Knight had to back off, and Philp just able to nick around the back of that, but that could have been disaster.
Well, I don't think we've had a battle as good as this so far for the whole series. This is a corker, isn't it?
This is fantastic. And Martin and Tony Van Gils pulling out the slipstream of Josef Moser and Ole Waffler, and they've moved ahead now. Is Bill Philp going to be able to follow them through as well? This is the dodgy part of the track to brake on. Can he hold it all together? He can.
No.
But Gary and Dan Knight come from behind, and they went past Philp and Waffler at the same time. It's Bill Philp, he's on the outside. Wow. Let's get our breath back.
Yeah, it's a bit boring what's going on at the front. Let's carry on looking at this battle further down. Laidlow there in third now, and still in third, because as you say, we've lost Richard Gatt, who's in fourth. Oh, this is one heck of a race.
And there's Andy Peach and Nick Webb there a lap down, but up the front, Steinhausen closed back in on Tim and Tristan Reeves. And there's that battle again, and it is Martin and Tony Van Gils that head it from Waffler and Josef Moser. No, Bill Philp is the second one in line. He's just gone past Moser.
Don't speak too soon. We're into this right-hand corner again.
And what's going to happen? Oh, and again, Gary Knight, he just loves that outbreaking manoeuvre into there, but Bill Philp, as he held it, he's round the outside. This is desperate stuff. He's trying to stay on the outside. Oh dear, oh dear. And here we're coming round. No, he's lost it. He's lost it.
Oh, he's managed to save it. Has he kept it running? No. Got it going again.
Oh, they're away again, but that was so close to disaster. They were nearly upside down there. Well, that's broken that little battle up.
Yeah, well, I did say it'd end up in almost disaster. I'm glad it's turned out okay for them, but phew. Well, we're back at the front once again. This is the battle for the lead, the final lap. Checkered flag will go out next time when they come round, these two, so it's between, and look at Steiny. Steiny's having a look up the inside. Oh, they've touched. Steinhausen punts Reeves off the track. Steinhausen's kept running, so has Reevesy. I don't think Tim's going to be happy about that move, whether it be fair or otherwise, but he definitely went up the inside him late on the brakes, and let's have a look at it again. Look, they are side by side. Well, Ian, I don't know which way to call that one.
Well, that's just two young chargers going for the same piece of track, in my opinion. I'm not sure the camera angle shows it perfectly, but well, it's the last lap of the race, and both of them, and we got somebody else off. That's number 97, Michael and Bernd Grabmuller, the young Austrian pairing, and they've had a spin. So, well, this last two laps, just the whole excitement of the race in about 30 seconds.
Well, sidecar racing is a superb sport. Let's have a look at it again. He managed to hang on to it. Passenger got flipped out. He's okay. Back inside the chair.
Again, another one that was lucky not to go completely over on its roof. But where are we? Well, it's Jörg Steinhausen and the German marshals happy there. Steinhausen coming through in the lead. That's the back marker, Jean and Gregory Clues. Steinhausen's got a problem.
Yeah, smoke coming off there somewhere. Is he going to make it to the finish? That could be the sidecar wheel arch, I think, rubbing on the wheel.
Well, yeah, definitely something there. There's a lot of smoke coming from that wheel arch, and Steinhausen, he's just got one more corner to go. Has that wheel gone flat because they're squirming around all over the place?
He's not going to give
That's
it up
Tim
now.
and Tristan Reeves behind them as they come out onto the start-finish line.
It's going to be a win for the German, to the delight of the local crowd.
Popular win for the marshals there, and Andy Laidlaw and Patrick Farrance in third position, some way back, but a fantastic ride from the Brits.
On the podium as well.
Well, there's some conversation going on between Tim and Tristan Reeves and Jörg Steinhausen and Trevor Hopkinson.
Clearly, Tim and Tristan are not happy with this situation, so...
Well, there the results confirmed. It was Jörg Steinhausen and Trevor Hopkinson taking the 25 points for a win. Tim and Tristan Reeves second. Laidlaw and Farrance on the rostrum in third. Martin and Tony Van Gils got fourth position.
Well, that is what you call sidecar racing at its very best, all in one race. And there is the third place pairing of Andy Laidlaw and Patrick Farrance. First time on the rostrum for those two, and they'll be clearly delighted with that.
Thank you.
There they are, receiving their trophies. That's one that can do it again. We have no second place pairing because Tim and Tristan Reeves have not turned up for the presentation, but there are the winners. Jörg Steinhausen and Trevor Hopkin, to the clear delight of the local crowd. They're on the top step at last. Boy, have they been trying for the last couple of rounds. If you're going to win, do it at your local track. That's what they say, and that's where this boy's done it, right at his local home circuit. Can he do it again at Slights?